So in Mounce chapter 31, we come to a new mood of the verbal system called the subjunctive mood. So I want to just give you a quick orientation to the idea of the different moods in English that we use, and then we'll talk about Greek moods. First of all, we have the indicative mood, and that's the one that we focus most of our attention on in Greek as well. But the indicative mood is often referred to as the mood of assertion. Some like to call it the mood of reality. It's the mood of the verb you use when you're asserting something to be the case. And so I like to refer to it as the mood of assertion. That's not as committal as the mood of reality, which is how some people describe it, because you can assert something to be true and it may be a lie, and then it's not real, but you would still be using the indicative mood for it. I'm wealthy. That's indicative mood, but it ain't true, right? So whenever you need to convert a statement, an assertion into a question, you use the indicative mood as well. So some examples here. I will eat more chicken. I spelled that the way the Chick-fil-A cows would. That is indicative mood. Okay. Will you eat more chicken? I can convert that to a question. Okay. Now, the imperative mood is the mood of command or projection, where you're projecting as the speaker your will, you're projecting your volition upon someone. And so the Chick-fil-A cows use the imperative mood, eat more chicken. Okay, eat more chicken. And then the last mood here is the subjunctive mood. This is the mood of possibility or contingency. Something's contingent, it may or may not be the case, right? And this is for expressing what may or might be. In uses of the subjunctive mood, the action has not happened, so there's often a futuristic element to it. For example, if I say something like, I insist that you be here tomorrow. The verb be in English is a subjunctive mood verb. We don't really use the subjunctive very much in English anymore. So if I say something like, it is the king's will that I be brave. We don't usually put the verb be after I, because we think of I followed by what verb form of be? Am, right? But it would be incorrect, technically speaking, to say it's the king's will that I am strong or courageous. It's that I be. I may not be such, but it's his will that I be such, right? And that's different than the imperative mood, which is actually a command to be strong, right? Be strong. That's imperative. It's my will that you be strong. That's subjunctive mood. Okay, here's our example with the Chick-fil-A cows. If you ate more chicken, you would be happy. Okay, ate here, if you ate, is a subjunctive mood verb. Now, in Greek, we have subjunctive mood as well. And so I want to just walk through some features of the subjunctive mood in Greek. So take a look here. First of all, we are not in the indicative mood. We're in the subjunctive mood. And since we're in the subjunctive mood, non-indicative, there is no absolute time for subjunctive forms in Greek. And if there's no absolute time, there are no augments. The choice then of a particular tense stem when we're in the subjunctive mood is going to be a choice based on aspect. That's going to be the prominent semantic value of the choice of your stem, not tense. Remember, our subjunctive forms are all going to basically be future-oriented anyway. Now, the two main tense stems that are employed are the present stem and the aorist stem. Present stem, aorist stem. We do have some perfect subjunctives in Greek. And in your footnote, and this is also in your advanced information in Mounce, they're all the same verb, oida, I know, and there's only about 10 occurrences. So aside from that, really we're looking at present and aorist stems. As you know, the present stem in the indicative doesn't use any tense formatives, and that's also true in the subjunctive mood. The aorist stem in the indicative and the participle do use tense formatives, right? The aorist, most of them, if they're first aorist, right? And we will see that to be the case here also, all right? So if you look here at the handout, the first aorist middle, active and middle subjunctive is going to use the sigma tense formative. Notice for the indicative, we typically associate the tense formative of first aorist active and middle with sigma alpha, but not here. It's just the sigma. And the first aorist passive subjunctive will use the theta tense formative rather than the theta eta. Now, that has a bearing on the next part, which is which connecting vowels are going to be used. The connecting vowels, or they're also called thematic vowels, are the same as in the indicative except for one major difference. And that is that the connecting vowels will be lengthened versions of the original connecting vowels that you've learned. So what did you learn? You learned omicron epsilon for your connecting vowels. In the subjunctive mood, it's going to be omega eta, the long O, the long E. All right? And the same rules will apply for placement of these. You use the omicron before mu and nu. You use the omega before mu and nu. Eta everywhere else. All right? And here's the other thing. Since the aorist subjunctive's tense formative is just sigma or theta rather than sigma alpha theta eta, there's no vowel with these tense formatives. Guess what? We're going to use the connecting vowels in the aorist forms. Okay? You're going to see the connecting vowels here. All right. And then lastly, since the subjunctive mood has no augments, which personal endings are we going to use? Primary. Okay? Secondary endings are used for augmented tenses. And if there's no augment, you can't use secondary endings. You got to use the primary ones. This is going to be true even for the aorist stem subjunctive forms. All right? So let's just take a look at some examples of what these forms look like in the subjunctive mood. So we'll start with the present stem, and we can have active or middle passive. So the active form is going to be lu. There's no augments, of course. There's no tense formatives. And then we get the lengthened connecting vowel and personal endings. So the subjunctive forms are, repeat after me, everybody, luo, lues, lue, luomen, lueta, and luocene. We'll go ahead and pronounce that movable nu. Notice that my omicron has become omega here in these forms. My epsilon has become eta. When the eta, which is a long vowel, has an iota following, what does that iota like to do under a long vowel? It likes the subscript, okay? Now, you can compare those to the present active indicative forms. So subjunctive versus indicative on the left and right column. Where do we have ambiguity? Only in the first singular. You may not be able to tell the difference. And then you're going to have to pay attention to more than just the form. You're going to have to look at your context, okay? Now, the present active subjunctive of a me is given here as well. Mounce provides this for you also. And look at what it is. It's the form of luo in the present active subjunctive minus the stem. All right? So if you know the forms, you know the present form of a me in the subjunctive. So may I be rich, or if I be lifted up, and things like that. I'm going to see these forms of a me. The middle passive forms are actually going to be very easy to identify. They'll look like your indicative forms except with that connecting vowel lengthen. So repeat after me. Luomai, lue, luetai, luometha, lueste, and luontai. All right? So you'll be able to tell that you got a subjunctive form by that lengthened connecting vowel. Let's take a look at the aorist stems, okay? We'll do these and then we'll break. So the first aorist active subjunctive is going to be my aorist stem, no augments, my sigma instead of sigma alpha, then my connecting vowel, which will be lengthened, and the primary endings. And since we're in the active voice, we're going to use the primary active endings here. So first aorist, everybody, luso, luces, luce. Okay, so that's the aorist form. The second aorist, remember, doesn't use a tense formative at all, does it? So I'm just going to have my aorist stem followed by lengthened connecting vowels and personal endings for the second aorist active subjunctive. So for lambano, the aorist stem is lab, second aorist, elaban. Remember elaban? I received? Okay, so it's labo, everybody. Labo, labes, labe, and so forth. So you can compare the aorist subjunctives versus the aorist indicatives. These are augmented when they're indicative. They're not over here. Same stems, though, and connecting, tense formatives are partially present here, not at all here. All right? The middle forms use the sigma tense formative as well. So everybody, lusomai, luce, and lucetai. That's first aorist middle subjunctive. And the second aorist middle subjunctive from genomai uses, remember, the aorist stem, because I can't use the present stem for second aorist, gen versus gen. This is going to be gen with no tense formative because second aorists don't have one. So everybody, genomai, gene, and genetai. And you can compare that with the indicative forms. And then look at the passive forms. Again, aorist passives are going to, in the subjunctive, lack the augment. We'll have our stem, theta instead of theta eta. And then remember, first aorist passives behave like they're what? They behave like they're active. So I'm going to use my primary active endings, not primary middle passive endings. So everybody, lutho, instead of luthomai. Okay? Luthes, luthe, and so forth. Grapho uses a second aorist. Now, in the second aorist passive, in the indicative mood, it's theta eta becomes eta. The theta's missing, right? So if theta is my aorist passive tense formative for the subjunctive, what would a second aorist passive look like? Well, the theta would be missing, wouldn't it? So guess what? I don't actually see a tense formative in the second aorist passive. Theta goes AWOL on me. So it would have been grapho, but the theta's missing. Grapho, grapho, graphes, graphe. Okay? It does, except the accent is going to be over here on the present, right? Grapho, and I won't have the for the present active indicative, I won't have these lengthened connecting vowels, right? So, all right. So anyhow, that's your aorist passive subjunctive forms.